You are now tuned in to Millenni-HER. The Millenni-HER. You are now tuned in to Millenni-HER Podcast. Millenni-HER. You are now tuned in to Millenni-HER Podcast. Tuned in to Millenni-HER.
It's a new one. It's definitely a new logo.
That's the first time we tried that, because before it would just be our logo.
Right. So welcome back to another episode of the Millenni-HER Podcast. We are discussing this episode, what our listeners have been asking us. Graciously, we're so thankful, that y'all think we the goats of podcasting.
Okay. We just going with the flow.
You are watching a master at work.
That's what it seems like. But we are not, but we definitely are trying, and we want to spread those as many gems as we can to help podcasters who want to future podcasters.
Whether you want to do it for a hobby or you want to get paid for it, we got all the tips and everything.
Yes. Great. Thank you, Cheryl. She started it off. That is what we're talking about. We're giving you just the basics of what it will take to start a podcast, and we're not going to sugarcoat anything. So if you want that, go to a masterclass.
And also become a member of our Patreon if you want the extra content and more information about podcasting. Make sure you subscribe. And our website is so dope.
These sound effects are so cool.
We got the theme song on there. Like, shout outs to Rob and Reek Rhythm, who made the theme song, and shout outs to Rob for designing our website. But let's get right into hot topics.
Yes. Hot in.
So hot in here.
So hot in. Okay, Cheryl.
Okay, so kick us off, Ari. What you got for us today?
Do you listen to the Joe Budden podcast?
I mean, I used to when it first came out.
Before video or?
I was like one of the original listeners, but Joe Budden's a little toxic for me.
So. Okay, so everybody, Joe Budden podcast, I by proxy started listening to the show because my man listens and watches the show. But anyway, so it's been around for a while. They have been since known as like the goats of like podcasting. I mean, solidifying a Spotify deal,
going on
tour, live podcasting.
All that.
Even Joe Budden himself started his own podcast network called the Joe Budden Network, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. But earlier in the year, there was a kind of podcast world scandal, if you could say that. And it was about his co-host, Rory and Mal. Actually, I know Rory because obviously he's a Kappa, and we're Zetas. But also, he's just been around, like just shimmying his way through the industry.
In Jersey, around Jersey.
But anyway, so they disappeared from the podcast at that time, and people was wondering why. And so Joe Budden obviously went on there on his pod without his co-host and told them that it was because they was having just some discord in the group, and he didn't really specify why. But the thing of it was that I took from it, he said he wanted to suggest therapy for them, all three of them, to work out whatever problems they may be having, because he wants them back, and he feels like, the pod is not a pod without them.
Because it ain't the Joe Budden podcast without them.
I mean, some actually... That makes sense. Yeah, some actually would disagree. I mean, based on the comments, because obviously it's been big as day that it's Joe Budden podcast with Rory and Mal. But I think so.
They bring the flavor, like they bring an extra, flavor to it. I mean, since they've been gone, I mean, he's been getting people like Kevin Samuels on, to try to keep his following up. But
yeah, he definitely started adding people to the plate throughout the year to, make it seem like the show must go on, which it really does. But I bring that back to the point of, he was saying they are still friends. And I thought it was such a great topic to throw in here at any point, because it's like, as podcasting becomes more of a medium that, you know, it's growing and it's growing, when we have more of those facts of how much it has grown since its inception, that these things will happen.
Exactly.
Like,
and it's just like a regular business, just going into business with your friends.
yeah.
You know how that cliche saying, you know, you don't never
Work with
mix
your friends.
business with pleasure. So
I mean,
I think him suggesting therapy was really mature of him. Because
Yeah.
I would never expect Joe Budden to do that, to be honest. The way his pride is set up, you know?
No, I think he's very pro therapy. It's just a matter of if he's going to use what his therapist said. But I just wanted to ask you that question. Do you believe therapy for friends should be a bigger conversation, even maybe more so than romantic relationships, or about the same?
I think so. But you know me, I'm very pro therapy, but it's up to the friends to agree to do it, you know?
Yeah.
So if they're against it, then it's
Not going to go
it's not going to
anywhere.
be successful. But if they're willing to, or even to bring in
Not even for a drop bag, like a bag on the floor, like you either doing therapy or what, you're going to be out of a job? Like,
but then that's more so like, say if they deny a therapist, a mediator. Because there's,
Yeah.
even with our Black Spaces episodes, when we talked about bringing mediators in,
Yeah.
that's a thing that companies do,
yeah.
you
For
know?
sure.
So,
Because they don't want their employees to leave, but then they also don't want there to be any, you know, hostility, animosity within the group. So, okay.
and they
go
weren't
ahead.
the only ones who had, well, he suggested therapy. I just wanted to chime in real quick. You know, I'm a big fan of Horrible Decisions,
Oh, yeah.
Wheezy and Mandy, and they were beefing for a while, and they had a therapist come on the show too. So
Oh, see, look, the other shoe dropped, because I just remember you saying like, "Oh, I don't think they're like really cool like that."
Yeah, I
but
know.
I don't remember you like updating me that, okay, this is why the chemistry looked like it definitely changed.
yeah, it changed a lot.
Okay, but what the last part of that though, in the Joe Budden world of it all, or even just in podcasting, what boundaries can a group of friends put in place while working to avoid any personal issues, like off the clock, on and off the clock?
Okay, so the Millenni-HER podcast, one thing about me and Ari is that this is why I believe our business is so successful, because we're really good at placing professional boundaries. We're friends. I mean, we talk on a regular, but we talk every day, but when it comes to podcasting, we make sure like, okay, like this comes first, and we set off like, maybe in the beginning or after our meetings, we'll be like, all right, we're going to keep an hour for personal. So I can fill you in on the tea. You can fill me in on the tea. But I mean, or even the fact that we've decided that after a certain time, we're not going to work on podcasting things. Because before, you know, I'm a night owl. So I'll be up at 1 a.m. where Ari has kids and she be asleep and she don't see what I post in the chat until the morning.
Big facts.
Or vice versa.
Right.
So, but we've decided, like, you know, for our mental health and our sanity, so we won't experience burnout.
Or also like not be friends.
Yeah, or not be friends, because that's easy to come, especially when you start a business with a friend.
Yeah.
Trust me, I learned so much about Ari as a business partner compared to what I knew of her as a friend. And it was because we placed these boundaries. That's why we have a successful friendship.
Aww.
That's exactly why we have a successful friendship
so
and a business partnership.
So just to sum that up, though, if anybody who has wonder what those specific boundaries were, like Cheryl said, it is we set like business hours for our pod. After a certain time, we don't talk about podcasting, or we don't expect somebody to respond with a timely response after a certain time, just like a close of business. And then what? And then what was you said? Oh yeah, like if it's meetings, but it's also like a girl chat catch up. We definitely make sure that we allot a certain amount of time. We do the business first, because obviously the personal will 9 times out of 10 go over a business time that we need. And then what else?
And
would we
also
say?
what we do is that we talk specifically business in the chat. Because remember before, we used to text back and forth about business.
That's a great point.
So,
you designate a business forum, a communication, whatever part, whether that's WhatsApp, GroupMe, Google Chats, or Google Meets, or whatever they call it. Like, just have a specified device of communication so that nothing gets misconstrued.
And then there's sometimes where we're talking in our personal chat and our business chat at the same time.
That had to stop. But moving forward, that had to stop. But moving forward, there is in the retrospect of, okay, people didn't know what podcasting was. Obviously, Cheryl's didn't know it could be a lucrative business move. But then there's this guy named Joe Rogan.
I know y'all hear him on a Breakfast Club. They always doing like a shout out, a commercial for Joe Rogan.
And he is so full of himself. I love it though, that he calls his show the Joe Rogan Experience. I'm not mad at it, especially when you made $30 million, okay, for your podcast, and it's ranked number 1 podcast in the world, and that was 2020. I don't know what it was like earlier this year when they did it, but it keeps obviously changing and updating as we go along. But you know, it even has something as crazy as 190 million downloads per month.
Wow.
Per month. And so
Sway.
how, Sway? Like, how? When we trying to get people to just like and follow,
subscribe.
It's just so hard. Like,
join our Patreon.
Like, what is he selling? Crack? Like, is he just like, hey, if you just like listen to my streams, I'm just gonna pass you like
something.
I don't know. But anyway,
he probably got exclusive members and VIP and all that, so they probably do get perks.
So it's just about, okay, that's crazy. $30 million a year for just that one source of that one stream of income is amazing. And that brings us to why many people think that starting a podcast is amazing. It's because it's for the money. But before you get there, there are so many things that you should definitely ask yourself about before it even comes to fruition. So the questions that we have here is that the number one thing is what your podcast will be about. And I feel like even the better question is to ask yourself is how will you make your podcast unique and separate from the rest?
Because there's so many different podcasts, different genres.
Mm-hmm.
People create podcasts for the most randomest things.
Yeah. Like the show we watched, For Life. They created a whole podcast about wrongly convicted people.
And that's really a thing. I know a lot of people are into true crime podcasts.
Horror, like
they even had a podcast for Freakniks that told stories about what happened in Freaknik.
They have a podcast for what's that show? The Masked Singer or Dancer. Like they have Bow Wow like host that podcast. Like, what are y'all talking about?
Yeah.
So it's unique. And I think that's why we'll go into it. Like one thing I think that makes our podcast is unique is because we are really investing in our community and trying to put our people on. This is like a platform to spread and share light, but also to really just show how amazing our city and our state is. So
and just how amazing Black people are in general.
Yeah.
We are giving on the Millenni-HER podcast, we are giving our flowers now. We're not waiting till after someone dies to show them love. Like we've shouted out businesses that just started and they're booming now.
Yeah. And so that's what makes us different because we are doing that and more people are focused on themselves. We're focused on others. But moving forward in that, let's give y'all some statistics so y'all know that the Millenni-HER podcast is not talking just big smoke. So Forbes, there was a Forbes article back in 2018 where it said that at least 67 million people listen to at least one podcast a month, but that's still only 20% of the U.S. population. So if you're starting a podcast, you need to make sure that your intended audience is part of that 20, not the 80. And it needs to be reached through better mediums. And then you have even in that part, as early as April 2021, there were 2 million active podcasts and more than 48 million podcast episodes. And that is crazy because I feel like that number was really only in the high hundreds of thousands. Like it was like 700,000. To
podcast. Like when podcasting first came out, people was like, "What's a podcast? What's that? What? You don't just listen to The Breakfast Club? Why you got to listen to someone talking?"
Or even they say like in the older generations, the reasons why they may even know about a podcast is because millennials like us are saying, "Hey, I learned this from this podcast," and it's like putting other generations on. But yeah, so even in that, it's just saying, okay, the list is still growing. Or let's talk about how you can attract listeners to come to your pod. So the top of that list is education. Okay. People want to be taught.
They want to leave with something.
Think about audibles, like audio books.
Which Audible just expanded to podcasting, because before Audible was just books, but now it expanded to podcasting.
And that's why, because they figured out their model. Like podcasting, like the beginning of podcast, we helped that because it's like, oh, they had the best of both worlds. So literally it's education. People are tuning in to learn new things and do so on a monthly basis. And then just so you know the competition, let me know how you feel about this number because it's about to get crazy. The average podcast listener in the U.S. Subscribes to at least an average of 7 episodes in an average week. And so, yeah, and people listen to at least half of an episode for at least different shows, for at least 4 different shows a week. So yeah, so and only 16% tune into one podcast a week. So it's like it dwindles. So if you ain't in that top 7 with your targeted audience, you might get skipped. And this is really important because we've dealt with that. I don't know if we could say like, oh, are we in people's rotations or not? I don't think we know that like specifically, but more so that we could tell based off of our views on a week to week basis, if you're really trying to pay attention to it, that it's like, okay, this week was a good week.
Or even because we took a hiatus. We took like a year and a half
forcibly.
Hiatus, and then our first episode was like booming. But then when we got to like episode 6, it wasn't that many views.
Right.
And also when you talked about competition, I mean, our podcast is for millennials. You know how many millennials are in this world?
Millennials are running the podcast game.
They have millennial in every in every subject.
Because
every
you're just,
topic.
Like you said, even though the statistics said is if you're really looking for listeners, it's about education because that's how you'll get it. But still think about the 2 million active podcasts out there. Now, obviously, all of them are not educationally based. Some people are doing it just for therapy. Some people are doing it to, vent. Some people are just doing it to talk their talk with their friends.
And I know later on you have something about, whether you're doing this as a hobby or actually a passion.
Actually, we're about to get to that.
Okay.
So we actually about to get to that. So, and the last piece of that information is just that comedy is the most popular podcasting genre, followed by, like we said, more education and more news. But like Cheryl said, and you could probably just chime in on this part altogether, exploring it as a hobby versus a lifestyle for revenue, for money. What would you say to that?
I would say that, if you want to do it as a hobby, just know that, I don't know, I feel like people that do it as a hobby, they're not as dedicated to it when it comes, compared to people that do it as revenue to get something. When you're doing it as a hobby, it's kind of like there's no structure. You're just going with the flow. You probably will come up with a topic an hour before you record, and it's just like that. But when it's for revenue, you're trying to get sponsors. You have to literally sit there in meetings for hours. We create outlines.
She's making it sound like she's miserable, y'all.
No, it's not even that. But this is my passion. Like my passion is, I came to you with this idea. And it's like you have to sit there, you have to it's so many different aspects of podcasting, because it's not just coming to the studio and recording. You got to worry about social media. You got to worry about promotions. Then it's like, how are you funding this?
Yeah.
Like
the bank of like, I wish I had a job.
What
I
more
wish
do
I,
you want from
they
me?
want my blood, sweat, and tears.
And it's like, I mean, like, are you a nonprofit? What do you do? Are you literally doing events to get money to pay for your studio sessions?
And so, but you know what? I differ from your opinion. It's kind of similar. Like, I know why you may feel that a hobby that someone wouldn't take it as serious, that is just like,
it's like free spirited, go with the flow.
But I feel like in order for a podcast to be truly successful, you should probably operate as if you should probably restructure how you think about a hobby. So, but with the mindset of trying to make money. If this is me speaking from a person who would want to has this podcast for revenue, not a hobby.
And I have it for both. Because
I love I'm about to explain why I see that point, and I agree with you with that. Like you said, I want both. Mm-hmm. I agree with you with that, but I'm saying I feel like you got to structure your brain is that you're saying like, okay, I want to treat this as a hobby because then it seems more fun. It seems lighthearted. It seems like you don't have to take yourself serious. It's like, okay, you have no pressure on your back, but you should still very well come to meetings on time, be there, as long as you need to, ask all the questions, do the research, even the difference is with podcasting right now, there's no time stamp. There's no time clock where you're like, oh, I did my 8 hours, I'm good. No, no, it's not that. You're literally working around the clock for the next idea, the next innovation. Who can I connect with?
Mm-hmm. What network can I join? Are there any
How can
groups?
I get money? Like you said, like
sponsors,
grants, loans. I mean, business loans, we ain't even getting in that for this episode, but it's like even that, to me, I feel like that should be like the last thing on your brain is like accepting money from the bank, because you gotta pay that back. If you could get homegrown money, and stuff like that, but that's what you're thinking about.
Or even expanding your team, because it depends on what podcast you have. If it's 2 people, like, we can't do all of this by ourselves. We need a team. We need someone to run our social media. We need someone to answer our emails. But
that's why I'm saying, like, I think that a hobby morphed revenue kind of mindset is what you need regardless.
Okay.
If you're doing,
that's like you just compromised.
Yeah, I'm compromising today. Yes,
because we always have different opinions.
And I say, but this is all based on again, factual. Berkeley College came out with they have a newsletter where they did a study, because again, podcasting is so new that nobody's too credible or too small to listen to. So it's saying their questions were, is your pod an ongoing family structure that you'll count on into the future, or is it designed to be a temporary arrangement? So I think if you boil down all of what Cheryl's and I said, that's the real question. Those are the 2 real questions that you should ask yourself, and even if you are a temporary arrangement, which can vary in so many ways, then you just need to be honest with yourself, and so that you can, just rise to the occasion. Because even if it's a hobby, some people like those podcasts. But if you're the type that just fall off the face of the earth, like Cheryl's was talking about, regardless, I mean, you put it out there for people to listen. So if you're not consistent, what are you getting?
And then
but to annoy me and aggravate me with your
I'm the
inconsistency.
person under the comments like, so when a new season dropping?
We're like Rihanna, like when the R9 album coming, sis. But anyway, so moving more forward though. Okay, this is a question. No, I threw this in because I feel like it is so important when you're working with someone else. Back to the whole even working with friends kind of conversation from Hot Topics. Should your podcast be a solo adventure or looking to venture with other partners? And then the further question after we answer that is percentage of partnership. How can you determine that? Now, I would say that is a very important thing to decide, because when you're a one woman or one man, one person show, again, that's why we set up the hobby versus revenue question, because depending on if it's a hobby for you, if you're trying to take this really off the ground and make a mark for yourself, which it seems like that's what everybody's trying to do, and that's okay, then solo adventures may not be the thing for you. Because like Cheryl's just named 20,000 things that we split amongst the two. We used to have 3. We used to have a team of 5, 6. That is no more. It is and will always be. If it ain't gonna be no more, will be us too. Yep. And so it's like, that takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and a lot of sacrifice. So yeah, what do you want? Do you want to work with somebody else? Not even friends. It doesn't have to be. It could be literally somebody who shares in your passion, shares in your vision, and that has to be what I feel like is the main criteria. Depending on who you want. Like if you want a silent partner, a business partner, or if you want somebody creative, like, of course those things do matter as well. Is this what you want? I want somebody who's dedicated. Like, I just want somebody dedicated.
But then it comes to, with partnerships, people expect, okay, we're in a partnership, we're splitting it 50-50.
Nope.
And it don't work that way.
It definitely does not.
It comes with experience. It comes with expertise. It comes with, what are you bringing to the table? If there's a team of 3 and one person is doing the most, or one person has a degree in whatever your podcast is based on. For example, if it's like politics, if that person has a political science degree and they're bringing all the information, everything, they're not gonna just be okay with just getting 50-50.
Or just be understand that if that topic and that conversation comes up, like, it ain't coming up from thin air.
Yeah.
Like Cheryl's was saying, I think that that's really important, because it does come down to those criterias as far as percentage of partnership goes. Just like when you're filing an LLC, shout out to us, Millenni-HER Enterprises. We out here. You will see all of our cool stuff coming out. But no, it really takes work, and you have to, and that really forces you to have those conversations. Just that one little quick transparency moment. We had to have that conversation. We ain't gonna give y'all our tea, but we had to have that conversation because they made us have that conversation. It was well needed and necessary. So, and it's not about sparing feelings either. Be respectful, be about your business.
That's where we talk about boundaries, professional versus friendship and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because those conversations are tough to have, and it could get heated, and that could definitely ruin a friendship if you don't come prepared.
And so, so we just encourage you that continue, if you are in that situation, you're looking to figure out, how can I have that conversation, or you're trying to gear up for a team, definitely try to make sure that you're focusing on a threshold of characteristics. So it could be, like Cheryl said, responsibility, accountability, experience, things like that. And even try and think outside the box as far as if either party has less percentage, where they can still benefit, payoffs, things like that. If it makes it, or any small gesture, it all works out. And so, okay. So we're going to move through the rest of this fast. So 5-year plan, 100 episode business plan. Now we're moving towards more the nitty gritty. I believe, Cheryl's, I believe you believe that is how you should decipher if or when you may even want to consider quitting. Is like either setting yourself with a 5-year plan or a 100 episode plan. We actually heard this from somebody else. I forget his name.
Kev on stage.
Okay, yes, shout out to Kev on stage. Oh my gosh. But yeah, he dropped a video just saying that,
and I tagged you in it, like, girl, if this ain't us.
Yeah, because it's like, we never thought about quitting, but it's more so like, all right, we should give ourselves like some type of progress report, deadline, something to like just see how we're doing if we are not, meeting the standards. And it really does come down to, even in that 5-year plan though, or 100 episode plan, how much, like you said, your dedication, how much you've done. So But also in that, though, just want to say it's okay to start the business before the business plan. That is something I feel like isn't talked about a lot, because, if you're here are two moments when you should consider creating one, though, like a business plan, is when you're prepping to look for money and when you start making money and need to track expenses for tax-related or auditing purposes. Okay. That is when you need to, like, ding, 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 ding. Like, that is important.
Get the notary and everything.
No, for real. And then, like Cheryl was saying about funding, when it comes to, are we doing passion or paper pays? So are you trying to fund yourself? Are you trying to get a bank loan, LLC, business credit, things like that? That is when a business plan. Yeah, that is when a business plan really will come into play, because you're not going to get a business loan without a business plan. You're not going to, your LLC won't amount to nothing without that. But if you're going to do like an Indiegogo project or those things where...
Explain what an Indiegogo project is real quick.
So I've heard more of that in like the web series world. What?
Nothing.
Okay. I heard that more in the web series. Is that Nutty Professor?
I don't even know.
But so I heard that in the web series world, and it was more so like where you're trying to match money and you're fundraising. But
okay.
If you don't get to the deadline you're supposed to get to by a certain amount of time, like, you don't get all your money. Yeah. And you gotta like apply again and things like that. It's hard.
Wow.
People have done it. Or like Seed Spark or like things like that. That's where those things come. They always have a catch. But when you do it, like, you get all that money.
You reap the benefits.
Yeah. So we're just giving you those tips on like how you can get money and or if your passion is going to supersede that.
Okay, so
what were you gonna say?
You talked about how to fund your podcast, your passion, if it's your passion project or not.
Okay.
But what happens when you start a podcast? Like, now what? Like, what if the views are low, you're not getting any play, then what happens?
Triggered.
Like, are there resources out there for people? Like, what if you're promoting on social media, but the algorithms don't respect your life, and you're posting fire content, but you're getting like one like?
I'm kind of taking that like another Kev on stage kind of credit, because he said don't even look at them. He was saying don't look at the views, don't look at the likes, just keep posting. Even the guy we watch on Sisters, Deval.
Okay, Deval.
His podcast,
Deadass.
Yeah, Deadass podcast with his wife, Kadeen. And he was on the Breakfast Club a little while ago, early in the year, talking about how he was trying to shoot some pitch himself to 50 Cent. And 50 Cent had told him, like, you cool. He only had 3,000 followers at that time. But then once he blew up, like later on in the year, 50 Cent basically told him, keep all those videos in your arsenal. Like, keep posting, because when you do hit it big, people are going to want to see what else you had. Like, that you're not just like a one-hit wonder. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those where that's my advice, that I think when the views are low, when the people aren't following me back, when the likes are low, don't pay attention to it, because one, you already set your mind to doing the content regardless.
And you're just saying, just continue to be consistent with it.
Continue to be consistent, but also try and find different ways. Like, it's not easy. Nobody's like walking out with a sign like, hey, podcasting. I mean, there are those people who will put at the bottom, oh, we're going to give you 1,000 followers for like $59. Nobody wants those fake bots, okay? And if you do, people pages. Always know how to figure that out, okay? Let me just let y'all know that it's so easy to tell. If you got 2,000 followers, but you stay with only like 20 likes and 80 views, honey. And we know they're not real, so you might as well just try to grow your stuff organically. And there are communities to join, though. I mean, just in New Jersey, like you said,
podcasters in New Jersey. Shout outs to Denise
Duran. You have women of color podcasters,
which helped us out a lot with our season.
Still helps us out.
It's just It just helps us out with looking for guests.
party.
Like, we literally find everything on there. It's like a one-stop resource center. And
then-
also, hashtags are important.
Hashtags, Slack groups, Twitter. Twitter is becoming really popular for podcasters, because they want to know more and they want to have conversations. But also, question, now that you started, content now or later? It is very important that the content, you got to decide. Like, do you want to do business first or do you want to do content first? I find that being another one, a small business problem. Like, it's a good problem to have, but it's a problem because you have limited hands, and it's about, okay, do I want to do the LLC? Do I want to get the big money first? You can't get big money without content.
Exactly.
Can't get, then your content has to be fire in order to get more money. So, there's really no, I feel like, answer to that.
It just
so don't expect
it
one,
depends on the person.
but it's just
or
more
the podcast.
so. Yeah, I was gonna say it's just more
Depends
so
on the
something
podcast.
like food for thought. We'll let you sit on that one, and then
This is important
Yeah.
because people stay trying to sue people. Legal issues that come up with podcasts, for example, copywriting. If your podcast is visual and you're on YouTube's and you're using a famous person's song.
Yeah. It's and so this is real quick. It's basically, like Cheryl said, copywriting, fair use is your best friend if you're a smaller business. You're going to try and basically use an abridged version of something that's copyrighted and to avoid any claim of copyright infringement.
Give an example of that.
Like how we use for our hot topics with
Nelly Houghton.
Yeah, Millenni-HER here. YouTube has now have a problem with us playing it. So sometimes, depending on how we feel, we may play it or we may not, because then we can't monetize on it.
Or even when it comes to playing the song, instead we play the instrumental.
Yeah, for sure. Even that, like, I think that makes a difference. If we were to not even play the hot in here, like his actual lyrics, we would even be more better off. So that's definitely an example. We just like the high air part. So it's like
we'd be like,
yes, but that's definitely a great example. So make sure that you try and keep all your masters for your original content. If you're licensing like a Joe Budden situation that he didn't want to do, it's more so like in perpetuity. Look these definitions up. These are all things that, we feel like, okay, again, what makes the Millenni-HER podcast different, because we actually have that knowledge. And so,
And also, if you sign with a podcast network, please read the contract. Please read the contract. Like,
as far as like what they offer you,
how clauses, everything.
Yeah.
Because it's important.
So,
And
just do it. Like, you would be so better off. And then as we start to talk about more like, now that you've started it, how do you keep the same energy? Things like that. When to know, how can you know when to expand? If you need to change your flow, your show, your theme of your podcast. These are just some quick statistics that show that 54% of podcast listeners are either somewhat or much more likely to consider buying from a brand after hearing its advertisement on a podcast. So if you are looking to, expand, grow, consider to have advertisements, if you haven't already, that go along with your brand.
We're taking ads. You can reach out to us on our website
At www.millenni-her.com. And that's with the dash. Yes, you see it right back here.
We have a package plan and all.
Yes, but so that is for sure something. Make sure it goes along with your brand, guys. Like, if you're a gospel podcast, please don't be trying to support OnlyFans
or strippers or something.
Yeah, like, it's just, come on, like, make it make sense. And then also, just for that piggybacking, in 2008, what?
No, you said not a gospel podcast. That was
was
just so random. Very random. But go ahead.
In 2018, marketers spent $479 million on podcast ads. Did you hear that? $479 million. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it went to news, like we said, the news genres, comedy, business, education, and entertainment. And it's expected to do more than double within 3 years, with podcast advertising revenues projected to surpass $1 billion.
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Wow! Oh my God!
So it's like, come on.
And then I'm gonna drop a gem here real quick. If you use certain subscriptions like Anchor, they'll give you free ads.
Yeah.
And they'll pay you like $10, but I mean it goes a long way.
Listen,
if you keep doing
$10 could pay for that wine. $10 could like whatever.
Could pay for
a shirt, like could go
a
to
cup.
Yeah, like so definitely don't. Small money is still money, okay? And so
gas to your car to get to the studio.
You know, my little thing just beeped. Energy gas low just when I was on my way here. But yeah, so in the spirit of that, keep the same energy. You started your podcast. You began your podcast. You knew what you was getting yourself into, or if you don't, by listening to the Millenni-HER podcast, you will know you started it, and now you need to like either keep it going or finish it. Either way, it needs to be in style, guys. So be consistent with your content. If you need to, which most of you will, add to your team.
Very
That's
important.
again with the paper passion play.
And you have to know your limit too, and realize what you're good at and what you're not good at, and it's okay to hire someone else to do it. For example, getting an assistant. That was one thing where we had to come to terms with, like, you know what? I work full time. I'm in school. She's a mom of twins.
I really am.
Like, she can't be up at 1 a.m. checking these emails.
So it has to be, you got to give and take. And then also, please be sure to circle back to your 5-year plan. That is 100 episode or your 100 episode game plan. And
but you didn't talk about whether people, you know, decide to do it in seasons, like the different. That was the whole idea of if you decide if you are something that has temporary placement or not. Okay.
So
that's like a huge thing, because certain people will do their podcast live, or they'll do it weekly, where other people do it bi-weekly or pre-recorded.
Yeah. So that, again, that goes with temporary placement, and it's still very good that Cheryl's mentioned it again. It's like, just be certain of your platform. Be certain of your platform. Be certain of your model. That's what we're referring to. Your business model. That also goes in your business plan. You will decide if you want to go live and do 100,000 live episodes. You can do as much as you please. I mean, we have so many platforms that allow that, and it's also free, but is it the quality that you want? Will you have all the capabilities you have? I mean, Instagram only allows you to have one other person on your live. You know, will you need YouTube? Will you need Zoom? Will that be appealing? Will you be, you know, can you do like Kevin Samuels and operate it all on your own? He has money for that. So you have to be real with yourself, and definitely, like we said, keep the same energy. And so I know he's the first person that came to my head, but in spirit of someone who is doing his business, who has expanded his business time and time again, with children, with podcasts, just all around being a boss. For this week's Black Business of the Week, we are shouting out our theme song, like
writer,
engineer, composer, everything he did, which y'all love. Every time y'all hear
Millenni-HER,
you are now Millenni-HER podcast. And so his name is Reek Rhythm. He specializes in that you are a brand and your product deserves to be heard. He prides himself on having the ability to think beyond just the creation of music, aiming to elicit an emotional experience for small business audiences and online consumers. So make sure that you check him out. His website is reekrhythm.com. Type it in Google, and he's amazing.
And he'll work with you. He'll bring your vision to life.
Yeah.
All we have to do is say we from Jersey. And then we got
Jersey.
You're now tuned in to Millenni-HER.
So how you feel about this episode, shows? You think we gave the podcasters who need a little push what they needed?
I think so. But one thing we forgot to add is, you know, you got to take that leap of faith. Like I sent you that post a while back about Weezy and what she said, how she, you know, was working a regular 9 to 5, and then she took that leap of faith and decided, like, you know what? I like podcasting. I'm good at it. and I want to make this my full-time position, even though that means I'm going to have to sacrifice a lot. Yeah. So you may not see the results in a couple first months when you start your podcast, but that doesn't mean that you won't get results at all. So you need to keep continue to build your brand, use these resources because they're free. You can literally go on Facebook and type in podcasting group and join that group, and you'll leave with so much gems, so much resources. You may even find an assistant to check your emails. I'm just saying.
No, big facts. So we thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Millenni-HER podcast. Again, today's episode was Millennials Who Pod.
Because we are Millennials Who Pod, okay?
Okay. And again, tell a friend if they're looking to build themselves up and achieve holistic success, you are going to want to tune into the Millenni-HER podcast, and we will see you next time.
Hey.
Millenni-HER.
Reek rhythm.
You now tuned in. Tune in.
The Millenni-HER podcast. Tuned in. Good job, partner.